Good afternoon, everyone. For my BioBits presentation, I will be showing you all the effects of eutrophication on Cape Cod and the islands, specifically the fresh groundwater and marine life. The Cape and the islands are the entire peninsula of Cape Cod, although technically it is an island, declared in 1916 at the completion of the Cape Cod Canal. Although there are many islands in Massachusetts waters, I will be primarily discussing Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and they are the only year-round inhabited islands. In order to fully understand the fragility of the environment we are discussing, we first have to look at what the environment is. Cape Cod and the islands are the sandy remnants of glaciers moving downward from millions of years ago, depositing the large landmass we now know today. This land deposition created a large deposit of fresh water trapped underneath itself, effectively capping it against the Cape Cod Bay and Atlantic Ocean salt water and the internal components of such waters. The aquifers range from 172.22 feet below sea level in Bourne to 0.57 feet above sea level in Wellfleet, according to the U.S. Geological Survey groundwater monitoring system. This freshwater aquifer is known as the Palmette lens, although it is actually 4 separate lenses. The largest is the Nauset lens, at the previously discussed 172.22 feet, and the Triquesset lens, Palmette lens, and the shallowest at the Pilgrim lens. The map shown on screen is actually an inverse of the sea level, so the higher that peak is, the deeper the aquifer is under the sea level. Martha's Vineyard runs off a similar manner due to the glacial deposition, with large deposits of groundwater in the upper regions on the island in Oak Bluffs and Tisbury. The depths are between 6.88 feet in Edgartown and 105.49 feet in Tisbury, as opposed to Cape Cod's wider range and wider spread of lenses. Eutrophication is the process of excess nutrients from man-made sources finding its way into the water system of a certain area. This process occurs through nutrients getting into lakes and oceans via unregulated wastewater runoff. The runoff in this area has become so bad that the Conservation Law Foundation filed a lawsuit against the Barnstable County in February of 2021. Smaller sources of this runoff are improperly maintained septic systems for nitrogen from human waste seeping directly into the groundwater. This has a large role to play in the Cape and Islands, as few communities have plumbing to a municipal wastewater plant for human excrement. This leads the majority of property owners opting for a septic system instead. While Cape Cod has 4% of the Massachusetts population, it has 20% of the state's septic systems. While these designs are good, time takes its toll on these apparatuses. Eventually, the piping and tanks begin to corrode and seep into the groundwater supply as well as the ocean. Over 80% of the nitrogen that enters the Cape Cod watersheds is from septic systems. Another source of this massive amount of nitrogen is fertilizer runoff. With many of the homes in the high tourist areas of the Cape and Islands heavily maintained with lawn care methods for the ultra-rich and the consumer alike, the fertilizer is not always 100% used up by the plants before it is cycled into the water table. Golf courses are also a culprit of this, where they use significant amounts of artificial fertilizers to enhance their lawn care and their fields for play. The photo seen here is in California, and nitrogen and excess nutrients are running out of a field similar to the way they run out of a lawn into an ocean, although it's a much more concentrated view in this, so you can really grasp how bad these chemicals truly are for the environment in excess. The effects of eutrophication can be seen in a very visible format. The ominous formation of eutrophication can be observed as algae blooms. The deadly red algae bloom in the northeast, also known as the red tide, can kill everything from microscopic organisms up to humans. Once dinoflagellates reach a certain accumulation in the water, they begin to change their color entirely, as they are the only thing in the water. In the northeast, we have a red tide due to the red dinoflagellates, and in our Great Lakes and other areas, with coastal runoff from nitrogen specifically, and fertilizers, a greener, denser area occurs. This is never a pretty sight to see on any of your beaches, as a lethal concentration can build up in the red tide and cause many beach closures, as this will have adverse health effects for humans who enter the water. This can cost millions and millions of dollars in ecotourism every year and is incredibly detrimental to coastal communities. This is something you never want to see on your home front. The dinoflagellate caused from eutrophication can cause a buildup of lethal toxins in the shellfish, requiring the closing of areas to shellfishing, causing irreplaceable seasons of shellfishing lost. This is a very pricey endeavor for the local environment. Paralytic shellfish poisoning is what does humans in, killing by lethal accumulation in the person's body from toxins occurred from eating shellfish such as mussels, oysters, and clams. Hypoxia is another product of eutrophication. Known better in some regions than others, the water can lose all the oxygen, leaving fish with nothing to breathe. This can be best seen in the Gulf of Mexico, where swings of algae bloom cause massive casualties of all marine life, from flora and fauna to large mammals, choking on the very waters they derive from, as the excess algae seeks all the oxygen. In conclusion, In conclusion, eutrophication is a grave issue that none of you in this room can take lightly. The vast array of sources for these surplus nutrients to reach our fragile ecosystems and the very water we drink at is nothing to scoff at. We are reaching a new dawn of issues, one that will affect us and our children on the daily. Consider the effects of this horrible process and the detriments it poses to society when you flush the toilet in the Cape, or when your dad treats your lawn with enough fertilizer to take care of a PGA Tour course. Eutrophication is something we must all take control of, and I hope you will all join me in taking strides to remediate this process. Works Cited Part 1. Works Cited Part 2.